I'm going to take you through something that I think every one of us on planet Earth must know and master. One of the things that we need to know and master, the basics of your life, the ability to interrogate information. God gave us something beautiful in our skull called the brain. So I want to start by looking at this article here that says Israel can't fly us all out to South Africa. And then it goes on to say the paid forced deportation flights are the latest Israel scheme in a long history of failed ethnic cleansing efforts. And I want you to look at the writer. The writer is a chap, Rafat Ibrahim. He's a Palestinian writer in Gaza. Now listen to this clip, and then I'm going to make some comments in trying to show you certain things that every one of us should have the ability to interrogate and make sure that whatever we receive as information, we process it and separate wheat from chaff.
What are these planes? Who is sending them?
I think it's ridiculous that South Africa is claiming that they didn't know about it. You can't charter a plane without having those coordinates approved ahead of time. They knew that this was happening.
The South African government would act in a way which morally compromises its position on the genocide, but not be party to the idea of an ethnic cleansing.
Do you really believe Donald Trump is a white supremacist?
I think he has mobilized that instinct.
I do find it highly ironic that someone who effectively is an Islamist supremacist is accusing someone else of being a white supremacist.
You don't know me.
I don't appreciate people who are lying.
You don't know me.
Who are lying to my face.
You are the age shouting does not assert the truth. When you get into that personal zone of calling me a liar, then I know that you are desperate for answers.
Israel is ethnically cleansing Gaza by flying Palestinians out of the country on bogus humanitarian flights. That is the accusation made by the South African government after another plane from Gaza landed in the country in mysterious circumstances. Israel hasn't responded formally to the allegation, but it has a strained relationship with South Africa already because it's filed a formal genocide case against Israel at the ICJ. Which with me to discuss that and more are Ebrahim Rasool. He's the former South African ambassador to the United States, and no stranger to Uncensored, the Israeli-American journalist Emily Schrader. Well, welcome to both of you. Ebrahim, welcome to Uncensored. First time you've been on. What's going on here? What are these planes? Who is sending them? Do the people on them know where they're being sent? Are they willing participants, do you think?
I'm not privy to the motives of the people who are on the plane, but I do think that we are beginning to uncover some Albanian connections to Israeli intelligence that have brought those planes. They've not decanted the people in Nairobi, brought them straight to Johannesburg. It was an idea to create a quandary for the South African government, and hopefully the South African government would act in a way which morally compromises its position on the genocide in Israel. And I think the South African government, after considering it, decided, let us do the humanitarian thing, accept it, but not be party to the idea of an ethnic cleansing by being a recipient of people who will never be able to go back while Israel controls the territory.
I'll come to it.
Okay, guys, with just those few sentences, there's quite a lot that we can pick up from here. Firstly, if you want to understand exactly what is going on, you have got to understand the person who is talking. The guy is called Ebrahim Rasool. He was a premier of Western Cape. I think he was appointed in 2004, and he was recalled in 2008. I'll deal with the reasons why he was recalled in details at a later stage, but that's the guy. And we also know that he was our ambassador in United States of America, and he was kicked out and declared the persona non grata in 2024. Now, he is the same man who is telling us a story here. Firstly, he says he is not privy to the information as to the reason why those people who came on that plane, why in the first place, he does not know the motive behind them coming. But he says he's starting to gather, him and his buddies, they started to gather some information that links Albania to some Israeli intelligence. And what he's suggesting here is that there's an involvement of Albania and Israeli intelligence to bring these people via Kenya and bring them to South Africa. And of course, why he's doing that, probably he knows better, but I have an idea why he's doing that. But let's go deep. Let me give you information. And I think that Mr. Rasul should have actually done this research because I did this research. I found out that the people in Gaza, for a very long time, even before the beginning of the war, some of them, they knew, for instance, that there was going to be trouble. It's estimated that about 100,000 people left Gaza before the war. I think some of them had the insider information as to what was going to happen, and they knew exactly what was going to follow up. But anyway, what is happening here is that in Gaza, many people, especially women and their children, they wanted to leave Gaza as soon as the war started. And many of them were, of course, interviewed by an organization called El País, but it's a media organization. And they made it clear that every time they wanted to leave Gaza, they were not allowed to leave Gaza. And they were prevented from leaving Gaza by Hamas and the Palestinian Authority. And those, for instance, who would leave Gaza, they would live under a French evacuation program, which somehow, I don't know why that one was allowed. But if they wanted to leave Gaza via Israel, they were prevented from doing so. And also, the IDF closed the Rafah crossing into Egypt. In fact, just to add, the women that we interviewed made it clear that it was so difficult for them to leave Gaza because nobody wanted Palestinians. Egypt didn't want, Jordan didn't want. Nobody wanted anything to do with Palestinians coming to their country. The only place where they were welcomed was Malaysia and Indonesia and Kenya, Malaysia and Indonesia, and of course South Africa. Now, Ibrahim Rasul claims that Israel is responsible. No, that's not true. What is true is this. Is that the people in Gaza, they have been escaping the war via an organization called El Maj. And they say El Maj Europe. It's called El Maj Europe. It's an NGO that has been in this business of moving people for a very long time. In fact, it started around May 2024, moving a number of people from Gaza to Malaysia and Indonesia, and some of them to Kenya. And some of them actually arrived in 2023. And those ones who arrived 2023, they were brought in by Gift of the Givers, and that is the guy called Sulman. And they brought in, I think, about 59 doctors and students, medical students and doctors to South Africa. That's 2023. And then also, the same guy, 2024, he brought in a plane around the 28th of October. And nobody spoke about the plane. It's only the 153 that landed on the 13th of November that are spoken about. So this organization has been moving people. There was also another agency that was also moving people between Gaza and Egypt before the Rafah crossing was closed. It means the crossing to Egypt was closed. Right. Now, what is actually happening is that there's a COGAT, which is a coordinating government activities in the territories. COGAT is IDF managed. That organization is checking the people who are moving out of Gaza via Israel to any part of the world. And that's the one that gives permissions, because they have got to screen the guys, because they are still looking for Hamas and they want to make sure that they don't allow Hamas to escape. So now, the El Maj Europe, if it wants to evacuate people from Gaza, there's a system that they are using. Mainly they rely on a WhatsApp system where they send messages, and the people who want to escape the war or the situation in Gaza and through El Maj, then they they exchange messages with El Maj. And then what El Maj will do will gather information about those people who want to leave Gaza, and then check with IDF or COGAT and check if those people are good people that can live. They need to be approved, obviously it's war, and then they need to be approved if they can actually be given a pass. And then COGAT would then approve. And then El Maj would then send messages to the people who want to leave Gaza to say, guys, you better move and move now, irrespective of whatever the situation is. And if anybody asks you where you're going, you just tell them that you are going out through the French evacuation program. Don't tell them that you are going through Israel. That's how people are taken out of that powder cake that Rasul is talking about. Now, what happened is that it ended up, because when these guys started early 2024, they were not charging any amount. But because of the increased demand, and then they started charging money. I think they started from 1,000 euros. And then now of late, they end up charging even 3,000 euros. Many people pay quite a lot of money just to be out of that war situation. And one woman, for instance, who was interviewed, in fact, many women were interviewed, and even on the plane, they made it clear that they wanted to get out of that hellhole, and they wanted to get out of that place as soon as the war started, but they were prevented by PA and by Hamas, as I've already stated. And now they are paying any amount. They don't care how much money it costs just to get out of there. And many people who want to get out of there, they can't. They are trapped in Gaza as we speak because of financial reasons. Now, that brings me to this point. Ibrahim Rasool says Israel was trying to create a quandary for South Africa so that South Africa could morally compromise its position on its genocide case that it lodged at ICJ. That is not true. Why it's not true? I've already stated, guys, that these people are living there through Elmach, and they are given permission by IDF at the Rafah crossing. When they arrive at the crossing, they are checked, and if they are not Hamas terrorists, and then they are taken by bus. Actually, they move by bus about 120 miles, which to the Ramon airport. Okay, and that is where now they will catch a plane to anywhere they want to go. They get the permission from Israel to say, well, you can go if you want to leave Gaza. And of course, they are also allowed to come back. There's an arrangement, there's a policy in place that says, should they want to come back anytime, they are welcomed to come back. So there's no story here of ethnic cleansing as alleged by Ibrahim. And also the whole issue of genocide and ethnic cleansing, I'm going to deal with it at a later stage. But I just want to clarify something first, that Israel was trying to create a quandary. There's nothing like that. It comes from his head, and I don't know why he decides to do that. He's supposed to be very responsible. I mean, we're talking war here, we're talking human beings. He's supposed to be really telling the truth, but I don't know why he decides not to. So that's the situation here. And then now when these people land here, when they landed here, it's not the first time that we had a plane coming here, like I've already indicated. That there's another plane that came 2024 on the 28th of October. 176 Palestinians landed. And even 2023, there were students. So for South African government or authorities to play a surprise game, it's not fair. It's not true. It's a lie. They knew what was going on. Even IDF confirmed that when they allowed those people to go through the Kerem Shalom border, taken by a bus to Ramon Airport, they actually were told that there is a third country that is waiting to receive these people, and they later got information that it was actually South Africa. That's why they let those go. Now, coming to genocide, that's another story, and also the idea of cleansing. But quickly to touch on it, to prove genocide is very difficult during war. That's why even, if you look at the ICJ case, it's very difficult to arrive at that kind of a conclusion. Yes, this war is ugly. We all sympathize and, cry with the people of Palestine, both the people of Israel, people of Palestine. But to call it genocide, then there's a component that is needed there. You need to prove intention. And this is what many people miss. Many people, they look at the numbers only. And the genocide definition does not actually deal with the number. What it does, it looks at intention. Is there intention to destroy all or part of a group of people on the basis of their color, religion, language, ethnicity, and so forth. So there is no indication here that Israel wants to totally or in part destroy, and intentionally so destroy, the Palestinians. Why am I saying that? There was no war, first of all, before the October 7th. There were a lot of skirmishes there and there, as we know that there's always a protest, always fighting between Israel and Palestine. But Israel has always managed that, somehow, now and again, when there's a rocket launched, and then they would just protect themselves against that rocket or Iron Dome. They've got, all sorts of tools that they have. They sort of got used to living with, like that. But there was no all-out war. But as soon as Hamas attacked on the 7th and then went into the festival and killed those children there and killed all those adults and little babies near the border there, and then things went south. And then we saw the retaliation, which is very ugly. Both sides, in this case, they faced a very difficult situation. Israel faced a difficult situation, and the Palestinian people faced they faced a very difficult situation for a very long time, for 2 years. 2 years is long, and all of us we do sympathize. However, to establish genocide is difficult. Yes, there's quite many people who died, innocent people who died, but of course there's quite a lot of combatants as well that died. What is only said is that you'll always hear people, they just take even almost not even a quarter of a second to condemn what happened on October the 7th. They just quickly jump into condemning everything that Israel has been doing since October the 7th in trying to punish and actually destroy Hamas, not the people of Palestine, Hamas. But unfortunately, as we will discuss as we move on, things went south the way they went south. But in terms of the intention to actually eliminate Palestinians as a Palestinian people, it doesn't fit. And also, if we go to the whole idea of ethnic cleansing, there's a problem there. Because by definition, ethnic cleansing is basically removing a particular group or particular groups of people so that you can actually have a homogeneity in an area. So now, I wonder if somebody wants to use that ethnic cleansing and say there's ethnic cleansing, what is that person trying to say? Because, I mean, who is being removed to maintain what homogeneity? But what is actually trying to say here, Ibrahim Rasool, is that Israel is trying to depopulate Gaza so that it can actually have the settlements for the Jews in Gaza. That's what it's suggesting. And it doesn't really hold water. And in terms of the genocide, South Africa morally compromising itself on the genocide case in ICJ, I don't understand that. It doesn't make sense because, first of all, if people are running away from war, how do you compromise your case when you welcome them to your country as refugees? I don't understand that. And he goes on to claim that South Africa has been welcoming refugees. You know, there are no issues. We love refugees. We are always in line with the United Nations conventions in terms of dealing with refugees. But he's saying South Africa had to do that on humanitarian grounds. It did not want to compromise its case at ICJ. You don't compromise your case at ICJ by welcoming refugees. It doesn't add up. And also, if, for instance, South Africa has a case in ICJ and there are people who are running away from war and South Africa welcomes them, that should be a good thing. I mean, in the eyes of United Nations or perhaps in line with the United Nations conventions on refugees or asylum seekers and so forth. So it doesn't hold water. And he also goes on to say South Africa also did not want to participate in ethnic cleansing and to create a situation where, what is asserting is that some people, almost all people who are living in Gaza won't be allowed to return, which is not true because there is a standing policy now there since the beginning of peace that says anyone who is living Gaza can leave Gaza if he so wish, and then is also allowed to come back if he so chooses. So it's not true. There is VMOs. There are VMOs there, what you call voluntary migration offices, through an organization like ELMACH Europe. People they can contact to organize that they want to leave, and then they will leave, and they will be allowed to come. But what is claiming here that South Africa did not want to participate in ethnic cleansing by receiving these people, it does not make sense. I don't know how it would ever make sense.
About this, but the argument against the charge of ethnic cleansing is these people have paid money to be on these planes willingly. They may not know exactly where they're going, but they want to leave Gaza. And the fact they're ending up in South Africa for them is good. They want to leave Gaza. That's not, when you're doing that voluntarily and you're paying for the pleasure of doing it, people would argue that's not ethnic cleansing. That's a voluntary thing that you're doing.
I think that's why I'm not going into the motives of the people involved, but I do go into the idea that people who voluntarily may want to leave a powder cake will never be allowed to get back. And that, I think, is what is the suspicious matter about it.
Okay, Emily, interestingly, the Israeli military body Kogat, which controls Gaza crossings, said in a statement the residents left the Gaza Strip after Kogat received approval from a third country to receive them. It didn't specify the name of the country, but actually yesterday or Monday, it did name South Africa as being that country. So they're clearly saying South Africa knew about this. They presumably agreed to receive these people. Like I say, these people expressed a desire to leave Gaza. What's your view of what's happened here?
Well, I think it's ridiculous that South Africa is claiming that they didn't know about it. You can't charter a plane without having those coordinates approved ahead of time. There was a connection in Kenya as well, so they knew that this was happening. The associations with the Israeli government have not been proven in any capacity other than the fact they approved the exit of these people from Gaza. And not only that, but the Prime Minister's office stated explicitly, that they are approving people to come in and to come out. They should be allowed to leave if they want to leave, and they should be allowed to come back if they want to come back. That is the policy. And the reason that it's controversial now, especially in the eyes of South Africa, this isn't new. There was another flight on October, I believe it was 29th, of another 100 Palestinians from Gaza. But the reason that it's a controversy now is because the only other agency that was operating, which is Egyptian, has been shut down because they shut down the Rafah crossing. So now, because they're going through Israel and because they're getting approval from Israel, South Africa doesn't want to accept them, and they're looking for an excuse to blame Israel for something, despite the fact that, in fact, these people are actually being moved out of harm's way. They're paying their own way to exit the Gaza Strip, and they will be allowed to return if that's what they so choose.
As Ebrahim said, many people on these flights would categorize what they're fleeing as being a genocide. South Africa has led the global allegation that Israel is committing a genocide in Gaza. What's your response to that?
Well, I think, obviously, I object this classification, but I also think that it's highly ironic that South Africa is claiming that while at the same time claiming that they don't want to let in people who are allegedly fleeing a genocide. So there's a lot of hypocrisy going around, especially when it comes to South Africa. And we've seen that for a very long time when it comes to the Palestinian issue. I mean, the life expectancy of Palestinians is greater than the life expectancy in South Africa. So what they have going on in South Africa, they've got their own country gray listed for terror financing, of which Mr. Rasool here has actually been a part of those agencies. A lot of what the flights that they've been bringing in just in the past 2 years, his colleague, Imtiaz Suleiman, actually brought in other highly skilled Gazans to South Africa. Last year, he brought in 59 medical students and doctors to South Africa from the Gaza Strip specifically. And when that happened, they bragged about it, how it was something humanitarian and how these people were brought in from what's going on in Gaza.
A few quick things.
Well, I'm going to let you respond now.
Yeah, on the issue of life expectancy, in fact, I did fact check that before the war. In fact, the life expectancy of the Gazan people compared to South Africa was 75.5, and yes, and then whereas in South Africa it's actually 63 years, yes. And some people tried now to actually bring other figures. They did some numbers to now suggest that actually the life expectancy in Gaza has dropped to about 43. And when you look at how they actually came to that number, you can see already the bias that, I mean, it's almost like, when we started this video, that guy that you saw, that the writer from Palestine, when he was claiming what he was claiming, that Israel is actually kicking everybody out of Gaza to South Africa. So this person or those people who were actually doing the numbers, they came to 43 using a totally wrong method of calculating life expectancy. The number one, how do you calculate life expectancy? How do you use life tables during war? You don't do that. There's a methodology that you follow to calculate life expectancy. So these are the things that I'm pointing out, guys, that, it's important that when we listen to any person, even if it's not a politician, anybody, even if it's a person that you know, or a highly educated person, or even a dumb person for that matter, we just listen carefully and make sure that whatever the person says to us, we can always check it. And that's how we protect ourselves against these people who can manipulate our praise. That is called actually propaganda. And that's the most dangerous thing for me. I'm always worried about having somebody who's going to tell me something that can actually make my mind to think in a particular way. I'm always careful of that. So that is why I'm actually practically trying to pick up these stories. Like, for instance, I know it's a bit of an old story, this one, but my job now, hence, I'll always be picking up these stories just to try and point out certain things that I think are not true, or some of them have truth. Those that are correct, I'll concede that accept the truth.
Just for reviewers who know nothing about you, let me just point out, you were the South African ambassador to the United States. You were thrown out of the US in mid-March 2025, so earlier this year, for saying in a webinar that Donald Trump was mobilizing a supremacism in MAGA and trying to project white victimhood as a dog whistle. In the early days of his second term, Trump, of course, called out South Africa for taking Israel to the ICJ with allegations of genocide in Gaza. He froze all funding to South Africa and offered asylum to white Afrikaners while calling out what he said was a white farmer genocide. Marco Rubio accused you of hating the United States and President Trump and said the ambassador was no longer welcome in our great country. So first of all, your response to that, to what happened to you?
I think I'll get to that. Let me say that very few people were able to leave Gaza over the last 2 years.
Right.
And therefore, this idea of voluntary departure is a myth. I think, secondly, South Africa has never balked at receiving refugees. We were the net greatest recipient of refugees from other African countries, and Palestine is no exception. There's no embarrassment for South Africa. It was crossing the I's and dotting the T's. I think on the issue of accusing Donald Trump of mobilizing, in my words, a supremacist instinct, I stand by it. Because what else explains why he would accuse South Africa of a white genocide? Everyone knows.
Well, we covered that on this show.
No,
I do not believe there was a white genocide against others.
But Donald Trump doubles down on it.
The stats don't show that.
Donald Trump doubles down on it. And therefore, what other motive could he have than mobilizing white anxiety in South Africa? What other motive explains that you have a net deportation of black and brown from the US and the net importation of white Afrikaners into the US, ostensibly as refugees? And so the point that I'm making is that there's no rational explanation except that there is an instinct at play, and I called it a supremacist instinct. I think I'm being proven right.
It's a pretty serious charge, though, to make against an American.
Okay, maybe let us start with this white supremacist allegation by Rasul. First of all, we did not send Mr. Rasul to America to be an activist. An ambassador that is sent to another country, especially a country like America, not only is our trade partner, is a superpower, is a very important partner in a lot of things. Is a very serious player. Now, you don't leave South Africa having been appointed as an ambassador, and then you go there and play politics like student politics, as if you are in a University of Western Cape. When you send an adult like that with beers as an ambassador to a country, we want that person to represent the interests of our country, not to use our political struggles that we went through and or use other struggles to go and be an activist in America. We wanted this person to go there and look for opportunities for South Africans, business opportunities for the Americans in South Africa, to make sure that we expand on our deals, have more deals, grow our economies, exchange technology, intellectual properties, get our students to go to America, Americans coming here. That's what we want from an ambassador. We don't send a person to a country to become an activist like Ibrahim Rasool, who is now going to go there and be telling a president of that country that he is a white supremacist. Now, this race card thing is a big problem. And in fact, this is one thing that I would even love our young people to really take it seriously. We don't need to play a victim card. This idea that I'm black and that this one is white, is a racist, that thing must come to an end. This is one thing that is dragging us as black people backward. We're not going to move because we're trapped in this idea that we are victims of apartheid, we are victims of white racism, of white supremacy. This thing that Rasool has done in America, if I was the president, I would have fired him immediately after that interview with Think Tank. Immediately after that, I would have given him a call and tell him that you are fired. Because as a guy who is working at the behest of the president who is serving this country, having been employed by the president, he's supposed to do, and to go and serve South Africa, he's supposed to do exactly that. And then not go to pursue another struggle there, or maybe he's actually pursuing the Palestinian struggle there. I don't know what he's doing, but we don't have a struggle to pursue in America as South Africans. We don't have a struggle. We are not oppressed by America as we speak now. In fact, I would even suggest that we're probably oppressed by our own black people now, because a lot of things that are going wrong is not because of America. It's because of our mismanagement of the country. So for a guy to go out and do what he's doing, what he did in America is totally out of order, unacceptable. In fact, if I was the president, I would have fired him on the spot. I wouldn't even have waited him to land in the country. All right. So now, when it comes to this, also the idea of genocide, I did already touch on it, what my views are there. But let me tell you something, why Donald Trump, for instance, because it looks like Ibrahim Rasool doesn't understand Donald Trump. Donald Trump is a businessman, he's a tough guy. And what he actually did, when the Afrikaners started making America aware that they have problems in the country, and their problems was not only the killing of farmers, but it was also the issue of expropriation of land without compensation, and it was also the issue of the Bella Act. So there were many things that the farmers were raising with Trump. And now Trump, what he did, he said, okay, fine, these guys, they accused Israel, which is America's ally. They accused Israel of committing genocide. Then he said, well, fine, let me call what they are doing to the white farmers a genocide too, and see how they're going to feel about it. And he played that game very well, because he knew that it hurts if somebody accuses you of actually committing genocide when you know you have not committed any genocide. So he played the same psychological game that they played with Israel. When Israel knows exactly that they had no intention to kill the Palestinian people, but they were chasing Hamas, and what Hamas has done over almost a period of 20 years, Hamas has been building a network of tunnels under hospitals, under schools, under every public infrastructure. And they were doing that under crashes. They were doing that so that they can actually go and hide when Israel comes, after attacking Israel on October the 7th. They did exactly that. They didn't take their women and their children to the tunnels underground as responsible fathers, as responsible uncles, responsible brothers. No, they left the people on the surface and they went underneath. How do you do that? You must be very cruel to do that. When you know that Israel will be coming after you did what you did on October the 7th, you know very well that Israel will be actually coming after you, and they will be bombing everything looking for you, because now you are hiding in the tunnels. It's very difficult to find you there, and then they go and hide there. So now it's very painful for Israel to find itself in that position where you have got to lose so many women and so many kids. And when of course, when that is brought to the international world, everybody says, wow, this is serious, this is really wrong, you know. And of course, nobody wants to see children and women dying. But if you look at the root cause of it, first of all, war was started, that Israel did not need that war. They didn't start that war. But now what happens? These guys, they run, they hide in the tunnels, leaving their children on top and their women. And obviously you expect that. And imagine if you hide behind, you after shooting and killing so many people in Israel, you go and hide behind your kids or behind your woman. You think that Israel is going to stop because there's a woman there? They're not going to stop. That's exactly what is happening. Now, Trump played the same game. He said, okay, you accuse Israel, let me accuse you guys and see how it feels. You see, it's not that Trump really believes that there's a genocide by definition, you know, because South African government does not have an intention, not at all, to kill South African white people. It does not have that intention. But unfortunately, if you look at the definition of genocide, you will see that there are stages of genocide, and also the definition is structured in such a way that it does not exonerate South Africa per se, because it says even if it's not the government itself that is actually killing people, even if it's the people inside that country and the government fails to stop them, then the genocide definition kicks in as well. So it doesn't have to be government, even if it can be the people in that country. And in our case, for instance, we argue that the people who are killing the farmers are criminals, and that's a good argument. It's not a government agency or police, or under the instruction of government, or any group or vigilante group that is supported by government. No, but it's the criminals who go and do that, and most of them, they would be doing that with the hatred that they have for white people, and they would go there and kill people, white people, and without even robbing them, and then go and write on the wall, kill the poor on the wall, or whatever they write there. You see, because there are instances where we see this. So then the definition becomes active as soon as that happens. Only it kicks in because if the government fails, or the government is not taking enough steps to actually stop such a killing of farmers, then the definition kicks in as well. So it's quite a broad definition. And it also has stages of genocide. There are stages. So now, but I do, of course, agree that there is no intention from the South African government to kill anybody. And this white supremacy thing, this is a victimhood card that is always played out, and I really don't like it. And it's something that South Africans, in fact, our young people must learn to actually, if possible, stop this. They must actually walk away from this thing. We don't need it. It's a waste of time. The other point that I want to make here is that Rasool argues that America is deporting mainly black and brown people from America and importing white people from South Africa. Look, first of all, what we need to be clear of is that America is America, and America is for Americans. Just like we always proudly say that Africa is Africa and Africa is for Africans. Now, when you say that, a white person understands what you mean. You say Africa is for Africans, we know who is an African. And myself, I also would go on to say South Africa is for South Africans. So if you come to South Africa illegal, you don't belong here, you must go. You must be deported. In fact, this idea these days that nobody is an illegal immigrant, everybody must be given a chance, must be processed and so forth. That is one of those things that is going to destroy the whole world. If you don't have borders, you don't have a country. Finish. So for me, I have no issues if America is deporting people who don't belong. In fact, I did look. What he's saying is deporting in the main black people. It's not true. In fact, if we look at Africa, the main people that are deported are from Egypt. In fact, mainly from the people who are pushing the Islamist agenda. Now, when I say Islamist agenda, I'm separating between the good Muslims and the extreme Muslims. There are those people who are using religion to achieve other things that are harmful to a particular country. For instance, America. And there are many people who are very good people who are black, who are brown, and they are doing no harm to the Americans. But Americans are looking for those people who are problematic. And even those who came illegal, even if they don't have criminal records or they didn't commit any crime, the fact that they came illegally and then they skipped the border, look, those people, just like here in South Africa, those people should not be in America. They must go. In fact, I checked now because there's an allegation that America under Donald Trump has actually doubled or tripled the deportations of people, and they say less than 40% of them are criminals. So what? Even if less than 40% of them are criminals, the fact that they came in there illegally, that's crime already, and then that person must go home. They must go back to their countries, because the other problem is that when they go to these countries where there are democracies, they don't want to go there and enjoy democracy. They start bringing all the nonsense that they come with from their own countries, and they want those things to happen there. But they claim that they were running away from the problems in their countries. Donald Trump is right. He must just take out anybody that does not belong to America, who is causing problems. If you came illegally, if you came legally, by all means, Donald Trump will be very wrong to touch you. But if you are illegal, you must just go home. And then what I saw as well in the main is people that are deported a lot. People from Nigeria, Egypt, and then Mauritania. I saw Senegal. I saw Guinea. You know, I didn't see anybody from South Africa who was deported. I didn't see anybody from the other formerly, what we call Christian countries. I didn't see anybody. But I see that quite a lot of people who are coming from these Muslim countries, they get deported because they are doing something else there that Donald Trump does not agree with. So I differ with this guy that says what he's doing, in my view here, is that he's dragging us as South Africans into the struggle that is not ours. That's my worry here. And he's doing this because he claims that he's a struggle stalwart. He was involved in the struggle, and you will see as we proceed in the video. So he is worrying me because he wants to drag us as South Africans into his agenda. He has got an agenda to drag us into the struggle that is not ours, into the fights that are not ours.
He does, but that doesn't...
And so therefore, I think that you can't have such a thin skin that you dish it out. And what is for me a badge of honor is that one ambassador out of almost 200 said something, and it was heard in the Oval Office. It hurt the Oval Office. It pierced a very thin skin. And I think that for me, is a badge of honor.
Would you really believe Donald Trump is a white...
I don't understand why this guy doesn't get it. There's no badge of honor here. This man was sent as an ambassador, not as an activist. I don't understand this badge of honor is coming from. Maybe he wants badges of, I don't know. This guy was sent there as an ambassador. An ambassador is a person who is supposed to be creating good relationships with the host country. He's supposed to be giving us business, creating, deals for South Africans to go and invest that side, America investing this side, exchanging intellectual property, technology, and so forth. This badge of honor thing of calling people white supremacists, I don't know how it's benefiting South Africa.
White supremacists?
I think he has mobilized that instinct in the US. I think it's the source of his vote.
You think he is?
No. When he says there's a white genocide and he's proven wrong, and he embarrasses or tries to embarrass our president with false evidence of it, shows pictures of the
But
DRC
actually, in the moment,
so
Johan Rupert and others, a major South African figure, called out the truth and said that wasn't happening.
But then what explains that months later, he doubles down on it and says, on that basis, I'm not going to the G20. I'm not accepting the baton from you. And so forth.
He can be wrong about it without himself being a white supremacist.
You never double down on a wrong, even when your own advisors tell you and the world tells you.
Donald Trump often doubles down on things.
And therefore, he has no right to double down on falsity.
But it doesn't make him a white supremacist.
I think it does.
Really?
I think
incredibly serious thing to call somebody.
It is, because I am from a nation who was one of the last who stared down supremacism in South Africa. I was put in jail by supremacists when I...
There he goes again. You see now, he's appropriating our struggle for something else now. He says it's from a nation that actually dealt with white supremacism. Of course, we had white supremacy in South Africa, and we dealt with it the way we dealt with it. But it's not for us to go around and calling people white supremacists all over whenever we find a chance. Donald Trump is the president of the United States of America, and we know that America is a democracy. It's not a perfect democracy, but it is a democracy, whether we like it or not. And we have a lot in common with America than any other country. We have got a lot in common with the West, for instance. The democracy that they are practicing is the same democracy we are trying to practice here at home. But for him to insist that Donald Trump is a white supremacist, I don't understand why you think it's such an important thing. He is saying now he was in prison. I mean, come on. On average, when I grew up, on average, young people would go to prison. At least every young person would go to prison at least for 18 months. This man went to prison for 13 months. He was in Portsmouth. Only 13 months, And he was in Postor eating nice, food, because I mean he's from Western Cape, and we know how people like himself, for instance, in Western Cape, were treated. They were not treated like black people. Where, in fact, if he was one of the black people, he would have been killed, went to exile, or went to prison for a very long time, because those were three options for black people. But colors in Western Cape were treated a little bit differently. So for him to now start, bringing up all these struggle credentials that, he can tell Donald Trump that he's a white supremacist because he teared down the white supremacist regime in South Africa. He even went to prison for it. No, man, come on. This prison story comes in again. You see, so it's not helpful. What is helpful here should be to try and build bridges, try to create relationships with countries, try and see if we can do business. What is more important is business, not a political rhetoric, not slogans, not this thing of calling people, raising race cards now and again when we find a chance. It does not help us.
I hear the dog whistle, I understand it, and that I think is absolute. I'm not speaking from a theoretical basis,
right.
I'm speaking from a lived experience.
No, I understand that. And obviously there was white supremacy.
In fact, I just want to add something here. This man, in fact, in my view, let me give you the facts first, what happened. Then you can judge maybe for yourself. This guy, in 2004, he was a premier of Western Cape. And 2008, he was recalled by ANC. National Executive Council recalled him. And you know what was the charge? They said to him, he was giving preference to coloreds and the Muslims in Western Cape. He was sidelining black people. Now, if you don't call that racism and supremacism, then I don't know what it is. This guy is a racist. And the problem is he's hiding behind our struggle. He used our struggle in Western Cape to advance the Muslims and colors. That's why ANC called him back and recalled him. And then he was replaced, I can't remember, was it, there's a lady that replaced him after that. And then until Zuma took him to 2010 to be an ambassador in the United States of America, where he stayed 2010 to 2015. And then he came back. Fikile Mbalula tried to recycle him, and they made him the head of elections in 2018, the head of elections in Western Cape. And the ANC performed so badly, you can't believe it, in 2019 elections, because him was actually a leader was leading the elections, he was head of elections. ANC was miscalculated. I don't know what they are doing with Ibrahim Rasool, honestly, because he's such a liability. Imagine, you go to a country, to a province like that, like Western Cape, you go and sideline black people, and you come back, you become the head of elections, and you think black people are going to vote for ANC. No, they made a big blunder, and there is a liability even still today. He has been fired from America, so I don't see value out of this man. In fact, it's such a problem that I don't know why ANC keeps giving him positions. If I was ANC now, I would probably suggest that he must go. I don't know if he can actually go and be a lecturer at the university or something, maybe even at the high school. But I don't think he's adding any value to South Africa.
And we saw that.
That white supremacy is ensconcing itself. They have free access to the White House. They have free access to give false evidence, and they have free access to really influence a United States president to boycott the G20 on the basis of a false white genocide.
United States president was never influenced by white people from South Africa to boycott G20. United States President Donald Trump is a smart guy. He knows what he's doing. He's putting pressure on South Africa because South Africa took Israel, his ally, to ICJ. That's the reason here. And then on top of that, Donald Trump used the same playbook to say, okay, you accuse my ally, Israel, you are accusing them of having committed genocide. Let me show you. I'm going to also accuse you that we have committed genocide. And then also, not only did he stop there, he then gave the white people, I think it's not only white people, but I must fact check this, but it's not only white people that he gave. I think also other people are included in that deal. But in the main, people who took an advantage of it were the Afrikaners. And then they went there. And he knows, Donald Trump knows that the Afrikaners have got value. They work hard. They are hard workers. They don't play a victim card and keep raising a victim. They complained, just like we complained, us, when we were oppressed by apartheid regime. We went everywhere. The whole world knew that we were oppressed. So if white people feel that they are oppressed, they have a right to go around telling the world that they feel that they are oppressed here. And then they have a right to take an opportunity also to join America if they give them a chance to be refugees there. I don't see anything wrong. Donald Trump knows what he's doing. And he knows that the South Africans, white South Africans, they add value. They are not going to toy there. They are not going to arrive there and start demonstrating on the streets and with placards. No, they are going to go and work the farms, because generally they are hard workers. They are working hard here in South Africa. They will be working hard as well there in America. Donald Trump knows that they are assets. That's what he's doing. So if this man does not know that, then I don't know.
It's probably not unconnected, Emily, to the fact that South Africa has been so strident about Israel, one of America's top allies, of course. Trump has been working very hard to bring peace in the Middle East. I think he deserves great credit for getting the hostages released and the current ceasefire and so on. I'm sure these things are all interwoven as to why he has an antipathy towards the South African government. He doesn't think they should have done that. But on that charge of him being a white supremacist, what's your response to that?
I mean, I don't really have any comment about Donald Trump. I don't know what his personal views are. I don't care for him that much personally. I don't agree with his policy on most of the Middle East, certainly not trying to make a deal with the Islamic Republic of Iran. But I do find it highly ironic that someone who effectively is an Islamist supremacist is accusing someone else of being a white supremacist. Mr. Rasool here is someone who has openly praised Yusuf al-Qaradawi.
Before Emily goes on with this calling this man Rasool a white supremacist, I mean an Islamist supremacist, let me just say something, guys, very, very important. You see why she's saying that, and sometimes I find it a bit difficult to accept that he is a Islamist supremacist. But let me explain why she's saying. You see, in Islam, you have got different Muslims. You have got political Muslims, then you have got religious Muslims, you have got cultural Muslims. There are very peaceful Muslims, and you have got extremes. Those who are extreme, and you also have those who are terrorists. So now, to understand where she's coming from, the peaceful Muslims, in fact, the peaceful Muslims or cultural and religious Muslims, usually they don't get involved in politics, which is called political Islam. Now, once a Muslim is involved in politics and is in political Islam, usually it becomes very difficult for that Muslim to stay moderate. Because now and again, he can try, like Ibrahim Rasool, for instance. I know that he, in 1984, he actually opened an organization called the Call of Islam, which went on to join United Democratic Front and went on also to work with Desmond Tutu on an interfaith organization that was set up by Desmond Tutu. But his problem is one. The fact that he's in the political Islam, he would find it difficult not to work with the extremists. Although he says he was actually a target of the extremists after forming the organization called the Call of Islam, because he felt the position, the Islamic position, as it was back then, meaning the extremists, he felt that they did not have a role to play in a democratic dispensation. So he felt that he wanted to reform or maybe moderate Islam. And then that's why he would tell you that he had big problems because he was a target of the Islamic extremists. But we know that he does have a relationship with Hamas. He does have a relationship with a Muslim Brotherhood, for instance. So even him, actually him and Imtiaz Suleiman, both of them, they have a working relationship Hamas. They have a relationship with a Muslim Brotherhood. They have a relationship with Iran. And we know that Iran is a very brutal regime that has actually just mass murdered its own people. We know that it took over in 1979 after the revolution, and we know that there was never any happiness with the Iranians ever since then. So he finds himself in a very, very difficult position. If indeed he wants to remain a moderate Muslim, it's difficult for him because now he's in the political Islam. If you're in the political Islam, you would always find yourself one or the other at some point working with the extremists and at times working with the terrorists. Now the problem is that, of course, now there's a difference between a terrorist and an extremist. A person who's an extremist is probably having extreme views, or probably is taking things too far and uncompromising and very radical and so forth, but does not use violence. But a terrorist is the one who has all those components plus violence. Then that becomes a terrorist. Okay.
Who, of course, is a financier or was a financier of Hamas, who openly supported terrorism and Hamas. He has constantly affiliated himself with various figures who are involved with Hamas. He has participated in his organization as well, has even co-hosted fundraisers with organizations that were funded and created by Qaradawi, who I mentioned earlier, Suleiman, his colleague. He also has done not only brought Gazans to South Africa, but also has bragged about his associations with Hamas officials. He's met with Islamic Jihad officials. He has also posted publicly about how he has a kafia that's signed by Ismail Haniyeh, the leader of Hamas. And just several months before he was appointed to be the ambassador of the United States, he was meeting with a delegation of Muslim Brotherhood officials in South Africa about how to advance the Palestinian cause. Now, given the fact that he has all of these associations with Hamas officials and with people who have funded Hamas, I would like to know, and I think the world deserves to know, what exactly he meant by supporting the Palestinian cause when meeting with those Muslim Brotherhood officials.
Let's give Mr. Rasool the chance to respond.
I think Emily has come here prepared to speak to a stereotype and not to Ibrahim Rasool.
No, I'm talking about your actual record.
Anyone who knows who I am would know that I was targeted by extremists because I stood against extremism.
Actually, your exact words were,
you've had a good chance. I have given you a perfect chance.
You stated that Qaradawi was your spiritual guide. Those were your words. You publicly posted it.
He's an important person in the Muslim world. And so
he said that the Jews deserved what Hitler did to him. Do you agree with that?
I was at the 60th anniversary of Auschwitz, mourning with Jews.
Do you agree with Qaradawi's statement?
In the Central Synagogue of Cape Town, mourning with Jews.
But in relation to the statements he has made of the kind Emily is saying, would you now disavow those statements?
No, I think that the point is that the Palestinian struggle is the litmus test of Western humanity.
No, you stated that Qaradawi was your spiritual guide.
And the free pass that is constantly given to Israel to do what they can to Palestine.
Mr.
And you
Rasool,
have called it out,
Mr.
Piers.
Rasool.
You have said it's unconscionable. You have said it's unacceptable. You have said that starvation is a weapon of war. That's what is faced.
Mr. Rasool, is Qaradawi your spiritual guide or not? You also stated that your most memorable days, you put it in writing. You put it in writing. You stated your most memorable days were with him.
And the same reason that you would see Netanyahu as a political leader. Ismail Haniyeh was the democratically elected president.
You participated in a fundraiser in which funds were given to the Hamas Ministry of Health.
Let me ask you one question. Do you condemn Hamas?
I think that the killing of all innocent civilians is dastardly, should be condemned, and whether it is from Sabra and Shatila, whether it is on the 7th of October, whether it's on the 8th of October, I think that has to be the litmus. And I'm not saying that
so you would condemn Hamas?
I'm not saying that theoretically. What I am saying is that is what is taught to me by my faith. That you don't think.
But just to be clear, you do condemn Hamas?
I condemn anyone who
not
kills
anyone.
innocent civilians. I condemn the IDF for doing that. I will condemn even Hamas soldiers for doing that. Okay. We even do that with anyone.
It wasn't like a general, who else do you condemn? It's purely...
No, it is.
After October the 7th, I don't know how anyone
We all have our favorite victims and we all have our favorite aggressors. I draw the line across all people who violate a faith teaching of mine and who violate the way in which we conducted mostly our struggle in South Africa.
Do you think Israel?
You see, that's the problem again. When it comes to condemning Hamas or the actions of Hamas on October the 7th, he finds it very difficult to do so. And just like many other people, for instance, who are on the side of Hamas, they find it difficult. And there's a reason why they do that. It's because they don't think that what Hamas did on October the 7th was actually a terrorist act or an act of terror. They see it as resistance. Now, if you look at our situation, for instance, in South Africa, our guys, MK, Apla, Azanla, okay, maybe let me say MK in particular, because Apla operated differently. And in most cases, I remember we really had issues with killing of white people, although some people felt that no, they must actually go down with the system itself. But MK was well disciplined, was well trained. Of course, there were instances where people would be caught in a crossfire, and there may be some people misbehaving. But the policy of MK was that you don't harm civilians. And but what we saw on October the 7th, it's a different situation. I mean, these guys went to kids, children, dancing in a festival, and you mow them down with rifles, and then you kidnap them, and then you take them to the tunnels. For me, that was a breaking point to say, but look, this cannot be resistance. This is something else. And then now he finds it difficult. It's difficult for him, and simple because he is in the political Islam. So it's difficult for him to come out clearly and condemn Hamas. And you would hear him, for instance, calling Hamas or saying Hamas is not actually a terrorist organization, but he says is an extreme organization, or they are extremists. But then when you look at the differences or the definitions of an extremist and a terrorist, you would find that the terrorist using violence and an extremist does not. So now, I don't know how he's going to deal with that. Honestly, I don't know how he's going to face it, or how he faces his kids and faces his wife and tell them what he has told the public.
Had a right to defend itself after October the 7th.
Anyone has the right to defend itself. Hamas would argue that they were defending themselves against 70 years of the Nakba. We cannot have a whole entire struggle based on reprisals and vengeance. That is the great lesson that South Africa has taught. We embraced, to the extent that I served in the cabinet of the last apartheid police minister who put me in jail. Vengeance.
There, that comes again. 13 months, Rasul, only 13 months. Average black kid in South Africa, in the townships, they were spending 18 months. 18. It was like a college. It was like a university. 18 months. And for minor offenses, from as early as you were 17, 18, you would just go to prison. It was so common. I mean, we were in and out now and again. Myself, I expressed that, but I'll never talk about it. So, but now that 13 months is such, and it happened, 1987? And then in 1991, he was in a house arrest. What a beautiful one. House arrest. In the township, you'd never be on a house arrest. In the township, you go to prison, or you get a bullet, or you skip the country, period.
Is never the motive for going forward. And when I speak on the basis of experience and the internal soul searching I've had to do to be able to reconcile with people who put me in jail, who killed comrades of mine on the battlefield. I've mourned at many graves, and I've had to overcome all of that to make the South African.
Yeah, but this is another problem. You see, I mean, I'm not dressing him down, guys, but I know in Western Cape, I know exactly. I was there when we were celebrating the 4th anniversary of United Democratic Front. I know Rasul was involved in student politics. He was never involved in street politics or any guerrilla warfare or any activities that would actually put him in front of a hippo or soldiers with guns. These are the struggles that they were engaged in at universities, protected. It's like after protesting, you go and have lunch, no bruises, nothing, you have not been beaten up by police. These are the struggles. So those were in academic institutions. I know that because when did he actually see all these people that he's talking about, that he has been burying his comrades? Where and when? Because this man, he did a BA, he finished the high school in 1980, did a BA, finished his BA in 1983, right? He went to do another year to do BEd, which he finished in 1984. And then in 1984, he finished. 85, he was a teacher at, I think it's a school called Spingle Road High School. And then it's only in 1987 when he was arrested for student activity. He participated in some political activities in campuses and so on. And then he was arrested. It was actually during the state of emergency. That's why he was arrested. If it was not a state of emergency, I don't think he would have been arrested. And that's where he actually went to Portsmouth. And then a meeting was arranged for him to meet Nelson Mandela there, because Nelson Mandela wanted to see him because he heard that he was an activist, a student activist, and then he became a teacher. So Nelson Mandela wanted to see him, especially because he also heard that he was a Muslim, and Nelson Mandela wanted the support from the Muslims in Western Cape. And Mandela also knew that he was also classified as a colored. So Mandela wanted him as well to assist to mobilize the coloreds in Western Cape. And well, I give it to him for having met Mandela, for having participated in that. But it was not as bad as he says. It was just a very good way of struggling, not a very bad way. No harm to him. I don't think he can even tell you that he was ever punched by a police officer. He was never bruised by anyone. I'm sure he had his 3 meals even in Portsmouth. So these are the things that make me feel that no, that's someone who's trying to appropriate our struggle for something else now, because we don't have a new struggle. We fought our struggle. Yes, we do sympathize with people who are in the struggle. We sympathize with Palestinians, but we cannot be dragged into that struggle to go now and fight with our partners that we are trading with, people that are of value to us, and then go and engage in another struggle. No, we cannot do that. We can support people who are struggling by heart and say, "Oh boy, we wish them good luck," but we should not be dragged into these wars. There's no need for us to be dragged into these wars. There's no need for us to be an enemy of United States of America just because of Rasul.
Experiment worked. So when we spoke to our white community, everyone applauded. When we speak to other aggressors in the world and say there is a better way, everyone says, how can you associate with him? Why is it acceptable and laudable that we speak to our white oppressors and come to common terms, but you can speak to no one else to share the South African
But to avoid
example?
any ambiguity, when it comes to what Hamas did on October the 7th, you wouldn't argue that was self-defense or justified in any way.
I think that in the same way that a Nelson Mandela, right up till his 90th birthday in the USA, was on a terrorist list until he was taken off.
You're not really comparing Mandela to Hamas, surely.
I am saying that anyone who fights for freedom always believes that it has a moral right.
Massacring people on a Jewish holiday inside of their homes is fighting for freedom.
Who opposes that
Can
freedom
you just answer the
feels
question?
that they have the right to be able to condemn things. So what I am saying is that
I'm stunned you've evoked the name of Nelson Mandela.
Nelson Mandela,
when I ask you about what Hamas did.
Nelson Mandela is the litmus test of how long it takes a Western community to take a man off a terrorist list.
But what we saw, on
after
October, just to be
condemning
clear,
him.
though, what we saw on October the 7th was not freedom fighting. It was a grotesque act of mass terrorism.
And that's what I'm saying, that all such loss of innocent lives must be condemned.
But why can't you just condemn it on his own? Why invoke Mandela's name?
No, because I'm saying that the same reasoning that Emily brings to it, that those are terrorists and the IDF must have a...
Not only are they terrorists, they're terrorists.
Right, Emily, you're responsible.
You have decades.
But I don't know why this man is bringing the name of Nelson Mandela in this thing. There's absolutely no need. And this is the card that, this is the playbook all the time. Whenever someone goes to the corner, he wants to bring Nelson Mandela into the... You don't need to bring Nelson Mandela here. Because Nelson Mandela was free to travel anywhere. He went to everywhere as soon as he was released from prison. He traveled all over the world. He was not prohibited to get into any country. Of course, he was in that terror list because obviously, things happened during apartheid. I mean, people were labeled terrorists when they were not terrorists. For instance, we know that the MK was not a terrorist organization. ANC was not a terrorist organization. These were freedom fighters. I mean, we know that PAC was not a terrorist. AZAP, Wazanla, all these people were not a terrorist. They were fighting for freedom. We know that. And then, but of course, the interpretation from some countries in the West, it was different. We understand that. But then, the fact that Mandela was still in the terrorist, he was not inhibited or he was not prohibited by anyone to move around. He was moving freely. Why bring him now and when you are answering questions, about the activities or actions of Hamas? I don't know what's the wisdom behind it.
Of supporting, you have decades of involvement with. You are a known Muslim Brotherhood affiliate. You have participated in fundraisers that went directly to the Hamas-run Ministry of Health that are murdering Palestinians.
In 1984.
Not in 1984. 2 weeks before October 7th, you posted about Ismail Haniyeh praising him. 2 weeks before October 7th. Not only that, the South African government sent a delegation to the Islamic Republic of Iran.
Emily, you don't know
I don't appreciate people who are lying.
You don't know me.
Who are lying to my face when I know
and I will
that you have participated in fundraisers for Hamas.
And shouting does not assert
your
the truth.
associates, are people who have funded
What we are
Hamas.
saying is that I had in 1984 already seen the limitations of an Islamist viewpoint. We formed our own organization, the Call of Islam. We affiliated to the Liberation Movement, the United Democratic Front, and to Archbishop Desmond Tutu's interfaith movement. And that is the way in which we have carved out a democratic Islam. That's how we participated in the struggle and in the transition.
False.
And so you are speaking to a stereotype, and I know that's very
No, I'm not. I'm speaking about your statements in recent years on your social media.
That
you openly praised Qaradawi recently.
You can hang
You can
all
talk
your
about 1984 all you want. You're lying through your teeth. The evidence is there for everyone to see.
The fact is that when you get into that personal zone of calling me a liar, then I know that you are desperate for answers. What I am saying is you've got to judge me by what I have done. You can go and ask your own people in South Africa, in the Jewish Board of Deputies, where have I stood? When
we know exactly
there were terrorist groupings in Cape Town bombing synagogues, I was the one as the leader of the ANC there, later as the premier, who had to understand that I needed to be the bulwark against extremism in the name of my religion. And I needed to do that. And that put me on the death list, and I've had to manage all of that.
Would you categorize what Hamas did on October the 7th as extremism?
I think it's any killing of innocents is extremism. Sometimes extremism
Do you believe that the victims of October 7th
like
were
Hamas has done, and sometimes extremism finds itself in the
justified if, as you put it, you're fighting for freedom? Is it justified?
I think that there must be limits on the methodology of fighting for freedom, but there is no limits on the legitimacy for fighting for freedom and against occupation.
But then you're implying that what they did was legitimate.
I'm saying that in everyone who fights for freedom will justify. We've had many trends.
But there was nothing legitimate about what Hamas did that day.
And there's nothing legitimate about what happened from October the 8th onwards. You have said it yourself. It's unconscionable.
Yes, but what
it's unacceptable.
Yes, I know,
Starvation is a weapon of war.
Here's the difference. I am completely unambiguous when it comes to what Hamas did and what that made them. In that moment, they identified themselves as a terrorist organization.
That the innocent lives lost on October the 7th is unconscionable,
Are they terrorists,
unacceptable.
Hamas?
they're extreme.
Are they terrorists?
In the same way
Are they terrorists?
that I would say that you cannot have an elected government simply being called a terrorist government. And the
Even
same
when
way
they murder
that I don't
1,200
use,
people, kidnap 250
there's
odd.
60,000 people murdered.
Yeah. No,
And starved to death,
As you know,
as we are now.
as he referenced, I have been very critical.
can't have a moral
I've been very
equivalence.
critical about the proportionality of Israel's response. However, I've never questioned their right to defend themselves.
You see,
and I've always been unequivocal that
Let me
Hamas
tell you
are a
that
terror
when
group.
South Africa launched its case against Israel in the ICJ
Yeah.
for genocide,
Yeah.
we did not use our own imagination of what is a genocide. We used the kind of work that the definition of genocide that was done after World War II and beautifully
How many countries?
accurately.
Let me ask you a question. How many countries and states ever have been convicted of waging a genocide?
We have had the genocide in Bosnia.
No.
We've had it. I don't know.
How many? Let me answer.
what we
let me
have-
answer your question for you. It's none. No country or state has ever been found
The
guilty of waging a
conviction
genocide.
is not-
Individuals have been, and groups of people have been, not a country or a state. So
It-
what South Africa
it
was trying to
doesn't matter.
well, it does matter to this. South
It
Africa,
doesn't matter.
Listen,
If there is a genocide
South
and it's
Africa-
based on a definition of genocide that was crafted by the survivors of the Holocaust, that is the case that we are
Right,
making
Emily.
in the ICJ.
I just think it's ridiculous that first of all, you cannot admit that the people who were murdered on October 7th were completely innocent.
I've
Number
said
one.
that.
Number two, no,
I've
you
said
didn't.
that.
You didn't say that. You didn't say that Hamas is a terrorist organization. And you know why? Because 2 weeks before October 7th, you were posting on your social media talking about how Ismail Haniyeh is a hero of the Palestinian people and bragging that you
I've
have a
never used the
keffiyeh
word
that's
hero.
signed
I've
by
never used the
Ismail
word hero.
Haniyeh.
I
That's
have
a
said
general.
that he was an elected prime minister.
It doesn't matter
And when the election
what kind
did
of
not go
person
Israel's way,
posts
they
something
did not
about Ismail
recognize
Haniyeh
the
praising him
outcome
on
of that
social media.
election.
And you talked
You
about
cannot
1984 as if you've changed your limitations on the views
No,
of
no, no,
Islamism.
no.
It's not true. It's flat out not
The
true
truth of
because
the matter,
in
Emily,
2019,
is that
you
South
participated
Africa
in a fundraiser of
is
Gift of the
using-
Giving of your friend
South Africa-
Imtiaz Soleimani.
I know you're
You
sticking to your
participated in
speaking
it
points.
with
But don't shout it
with
out
Hamas
every time
officials at
louder
this
and
event,
louder.
and that
What-
money went directly to the Hamas-run
okay,
Ministry of Health.
you've made that point forcefully.
You see, the problem here is that it's very complex, very, very complex, guys. And I'm sure yourselves as well, you'll do your homework. I encourage everybody to start now reading a lot about these things because we're in a very, very difficult situation, the whole world. If you look at Islam, for instance, the political Islam, and they claim that they derive this from the religion itself. That's why this MLE will always talk about the Islamist supremacist. Now, the problem is Islam views everybody who is not a Muslim as an infidel. And in fact, they even call a person who is actually, they would say a non-believer, a kufa. It means you are a non-believer, right? And if you are not a Muslim, right, you have three choices. One is either you convert. In fact, that's what they are saying. I mean, you can listen to them. If you don't trust me, just go and Google what the Muslims are saying about people who are not Muslims. They are saying, one, if you are not a Muslim, you have got the first choice is that you need to convert and become a Muslim, right? That's the first thing. And if you don't want to become a Muslim, the second choice that you have, you can pay a special tax called jizya, right, under the Islamic rule. And then if you don't want the above two to convert as a Muslim, become a Muslim or pay the jizya, and then you're going to lose your head. That's the deal, and nothing else, no more, no less. Right? Now you ask yourself, when these political Muslims take a position like that, and they are saying today they want to re-establish the caliphate. Basically, the caliphate is the Islamic rule, like you would have had, for instance, in the Ottoman, during the times of the Ottoman Empire that started around the 7th century, after the death of Prophet Muhammad. I think there's a guy that took over. They called Ummah, and then they conquered everything right from Spain along the the south coast of Mediterranean Sea, went straight to Central Asia and then also India, and they took the entire North Africa. All those areas were Christians. Egypt was Christian, and we go all the other areas right up to Mauritania. And then they went in to even take over Iran. Iran was a Christian country, Iraq, and they took all those things. Istanbul, they went straight up, right up to the Constantinople, right? So that's how vicious they were. Now, they want to reintroduce, because there was a pushback, obviously, that's why they were pushed back to the Arabian Peninsula where you find them now. But now, the Muslim Brotherhood, and with its offshoots, like Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis in Yemen, the Iraqi militias, and all these groups, they have one thing in common. They want to reintroduce the Islamic Caliphate. It means they want the rule of Islam throughout the world, not only in that region, only in the Middle East. No, throughout the world. That's what they want. And everybody must be a Muslim. There's no two ways about it. So that is a problem now that we have. And now you ask yourself, if someone says to you, if you are not a Muslim, you are a kuffar, or you are an infidel, or you calls whatever name, then you ask yourself, what is it? Is it prejudice? Is it scoffing? Is it religiophobia? What is it? Or is it some form of discrimination? What kind of a discrimination is this? So it means, is it not worse than racism that many people always cry foul of and say, yeah, this is a white supremacist, this is a white racist, and blah, blah, blah. What about when you start looking at people and looking down upon their religion and saying your religion is superior? Like, for instance, it is happening with most, not all, some Muslims who preach this gospel that if you are not a Muslim, you are inferior, you need to convert. That is the discussion that we must have, guys. So for me, I'm really worried. I want us to have this conversation, and I wish actually I can have a conversation with a Muslim, who can explain to me, what do these things mean? Should we be worried, or maybe it's just things that just to brush off? And instead of actually listening to a propaganda that comes from the mouth of politicians, we need to really research these things, look at these things, and find out exactly what these things are and what they are all about.
I want to end by talking about where we are now in Israel. There is a ceasefire. The hostages have been released. There is this 20-point plan, which Donald Trump and his team have put forward, has been adopted by the United Nations. Are you supportive of this plan?
Any plan that takes us towards peace, imperfect as it is a step in the right direction. Whether it is a peace or a ceasefire, that's moot. We will see as it goes. Whether it is the demand for a surrender on the one side, or whether it is a genuine coming together of hearts, that we will see. And again, having lived through the transition and being in the leadership during a transition, we know that those are fraught with all kinds of dangers, even if you have perfect angels negotiating on both sides. But at the end of the day, the best peace comes out of when opposing people speak to each other. We need to see, the proof will be in the pudding. And that, I think, is what is being awaited. A ceasefire with incursions from Israel is not perfect, but I think at least we hope. I've been in Amman, I've seen warehouses full of food, and if any of that food can simply move in, it will be an improvement. We have seen the amount of deaths, thousands a day. If only that even slow down, it is important. But I think we must end belligerence on all sides, and we must have a genuine and sincere effort for peace.
Okay, Emily.
I think that the peace plan is a positive step. I hope that it's successful. I definitely have my doubts. And the primary reason for that is that we're talking about an international peacekeeping force, which, if we're looking at history, is very problematic, especially in the Middle East. If you look at UNIFIL in Lebanon and UN Resolution 1559 and also 1701 that called for the disarmament of Hezbollah, they haven't been successful. The Lebanese government has repeatedly failed to disarm Hezbollah. It's a huge problem for the country that's ongoing. And still, they're supposed to be being disarmed. That's not happening. And unfortunately, I think that's probably what we're going to see in the Gaza Strip as well. And that's something that's unacceptable. Hamas is a terrorist organization that, for the sake of both sides, needs to be destroyed, certainly disarmed and removed from power. And they should have no role in the future governance of Gaza. And that's going to be very, very difficult with an international peacekeeping force. We haven't seen any country step up and say, yes, we're willing to actually force Hamas to disarm. Certainly, Hamas has said they're not going to do that under any circumstances. And so there's a lot still unknown, but it's definitely a step in the right direction.
The reason
For me, I think what needs to happen, first of all, Hamas is not going to disarm. They have made it clear that they're not going to disarm. And all these people who are participating in the Port of Peace, they are agreeing, all of them. They say Hamas must not participate in any shape or form in the running of Gaza. They don't want to negotiate with Hamas. They don't want anything to do with Hamas. They want Hamas to exit Gaza. And Hamas is not going to do that. They have made it clear. How peace can be achieved there, in my view, is simple. You need all those countries who started war against Israel in 1948, when Israel accepted the independence that they were offered under the Balfour Declaration. The countries who attacked Israel, they need to sit down and accept that Israel exists as a state. That's the first thing. If they can just accept that, that's a 50% work done. And the next step would be to rehabilitate the people, especially the young people, and introduce education at the schools in Gaza, where young people will be educated to love the Jews, love themselves first, then love the Jews, and love Israel, love Palestine, love themselves as Palestinians, love the Jews, love Israel, and love life above all. Once they have done that, and they rehabilitated those that have been indoctrinated to hate the Jews, to grow up wishing to kill the Jews, and the women who are ready to give up their children to kill the Jews, change that education, change everything. And then after some time, when that generation grows and has been rehabilitated, and the Hamas has been, the oxygen has been squeezed out of Hamas completely by all the Arab countries. All the Arab countries must just take that commitment to say we need to squeeze out any military action against Israel, whether it be Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis in Yemen, the Shia militia in Iraq, all those people, they need to be squeezed out of the system, take oxygen off them, and then the Arab countries must say, we want peace, we recognize the existence of Israel. Then after that, what now can happen is that a one state can be formed, not two states. This two-state solution, that's just nonsense. A one state is possible, but it's possible only when there's love and there's peace, and the two people love each other, they can stay together. But for as long as it's almost like in a marriage. If two people have lost love for each other, they no longer love each other, they are fighting every day, the best thing for those people is a divorce, and they must live separately. Same applies here. But that would be the best approach. But having a two-state solution is disaster, because what's going to happen is that if we don't implement that rehabilitation, you don't re-educate those kids, there's no involvement of all the countries in the world, Arab countries included, and Israel, to rehabilitate the children of Gaza, educate them to love themselves, educate those women to love their children. And then they can have a chance in their hearts and their minds to love the Jews. There will never be peace. Because there will always be that thing that says they took our land, they took this, as if actually it is true, because it has been propagated throughout the world that actually Israel is an invader. The only thing that happened here is that when Israel was attacked, and then they had to fight back, and then they ended up acquiring more land. Just like it happened in any war. People, when there's war, and then you lose ground, just like it's happening with Ukraine. I mean, Ukraine has lost ground. Some of the portions of land have been taken by Russia now. It happens everywhere whenever there's war. So if you are talking about 67 borders, those are the things that they are talking about. But in my view, that's what needs to happen. If that can happen, I believe that there can be a peace. And you need one state. You don't need a two-state. Two-state solution is not going to fly.
I've held off using the word genocide. I've categorized a lot of what I've been seeing as a form of ethnic cleansing, particularly when I hear Smodrich and Ben-Gvir and these very far-right members of that government talking in openly ethnic cleansing manner about wanting to get rid of all Palestinians from the Gaza Strip. But the reason I've held off is because if Israel was waging a genocide, and that was their clear intention, as many believe they are, why would they do a ceasefire?
It's the one point that I think that they are also being frog-marched to a ceasefire in the same way that Hamas is being frog-marched to a ceasefire. The belligerents in the war don't easily give up the weaponry of that war.
But if they were genuinely wanting to get rid of all the Palestinians,
I think that
they wouldn't surely stop killing them. They would carry on, wouldn't they?
I think it is carrying on. That I think is unfortunate, and every pretext allows an incursion. And so that's why I'm saying that it's an imperfect one. It's a step in the right. It gives breathing space.
And if Israel is being taken down a line away from genocide to a peaceful resolution, who would you credit with making them do that?
I think that there is fatigue. I think that the influence that some of the Arab states have begun to exercise in conjunction with Donald Trump takes us into a point.
But
like
it's a Trump plan.
It is the only plan that is on the table.
Listen to this guy. He doesn't even want to give credit to Donald Trump. It's Donald Trump's initiative that is being implemented. Now he says, no, some of the Arab countries that have in conjunction with Donald Trump. What kind of a man is this one? Because you have got to acknowledge, here's a guy, even if you hate him or you don't like him, but here's a guy who started something called a peace plan for that area. And then now he says, no, it's the other guys.
It brings relief, but it does not bring a solution because it does not end.
No.
The key question will be,
yet.
Will the peace be on the status quo ante, where things were, probably in 1967, or will it be the status quo as is, with Israel even retaining 2/3 of Gaza?
If it is a lasting peace, should Trump get the Nobel Peace Prize?
I don't think that I come from a country that has contributed 4 Nobel Peace Laureates, and I think they all deserve it, and they set the
Trump
criteria.
wouldn't deserve one
I
for
don't
that?
think he does.
And yet you think he's brought Israel to heel.
But this guy is dragging our country, on the mud. He's dragging our country on the mud. Us as South Africans, I mean, come on. Generally, if we were to take a vote and ask all South Africans would tell you that Donald Trump at least deserves something, Now he keeps on saying, no, we come from a country that, no, man, come on, man. Us as black people, we are forgiving people. That's why even today, we are with our white people here. We love them. We don't hate them. We're forgotten about, we do know what happened, but we chose, to move on. We love each other. We move on. This hatred that he has, I don't know where it's going to take him. Just because you were kicked out of US, you want to drag us with you down? No, we're not coming.
Stop the killing.
I'm not saying he's brought him to heel. I've said he's frog-marched together with the Arab
Whichever way you want to
and the Turkish
categorize it,
states.
if Trump has frog-marched Israel to peace, why would he not brought the Nobel Peace Prize?
Because I think the permissions that went up till that moment will disqualify.
Isn't it because you think he's a white supremacist and you don't want to say he deserves it?
And I think that supremacism doesn't need rewards.
It's odd behavior for a supremacist to try and forge peace.
Not if he's striving for a peace prize.
Okay, going to leave it there. Thank you very much for coming
Thank
in.
you very
Emily,
much.
thank you very much for coming in. I appreciate it.